The Joe Rogan Experience.
And when I went in front of that judge, I just remember standing there and listening to them walk through that night. The prosecutors telling what happened that night. And it was a one dimensional telling of that story. It was the very factual, like, hey, this guy, shot, killed this man. There was no context to none of my life. And when the judge sentenced me, he said 15 to 40 years for the homicide and 2 years for the felony firearm. At 19, I thought my life was over. Like, I thought that was it. Like, at 19, I couldn't even imagine, 17 years down the line. At that age, I couldn't even imagine like 2 weeks down the line. It felt like a lifetime. So when he sentenced me, I was like, this is it, man. Like, my life is over. And so I started my prison sentence with the mindset that I was never getting out of prison.
How much time did you wind up doing?
I did a total of 19 years. And out of that 19 years, I did 7 of those years in solitary confinement.
Ooh, what is that like?
It is when I tell people, it is the most barbaric thing that we do to people in this country. And it's a combination of reasons of why I believe that. One, a lot of people who are in solitary confinement have pre-existing mental health challenges, meaning that they have diagnosed, bipolar, schizophrenia. And it's 23-hour lockdown. 23-hour lockdown, 5 days a week, 24-hour lockdown, the other 2 days a week. And it is the most chaotic environment you can imagine. The guys there, to wage war with each other would just, like the steel footlocker, they would bang it for hours. Like, these guys would just have, the endurance to do that for hours, to antagonize a person next to you. They would have what is full on shit wars, like where the I call them weapons of mass destruction, because these guys would like concoct ways to throw feces on each other. So if they get into a beef, like, the way that they would go to war is they would literally, and it's there's an ingenuity that happens in prison that's unlike anything that most people can comprehend. We can make weapons out of anything. We can make, tools out of anything. So these guys would literally figure out how to get feces into a toothpaste tube, which means that they would like have to like literally go in the toilet, pull this stuff out, stuff it into a thing, and then they would smuggle it out to like the cages, right? So 5 days we can go out to these cages. It's literally like, just imagine a dog kennel, like a dog run, right? Where it's like kennel after kennel after kennel. So that's how they would take us out. And you're in a cell. They come and they handcuff you to these handcuffs attached to a leash, and they walk you down a tier, take you out to this dog kennel, and they let you out. And so they have to give you at least an hour of that a day. And so these guys would come out, and they would be, beefing with their neighbor. And now it's a full on, they're just squirting shit on each other. Like, it's fucking insane. And there was this one guy, man. I remember this one guy. He had a colostomy bag. This was like the equivalent of having a fucking AK-47. Like, he's like this guy. And we were like cool. So he would tell me the days like, don't come out. He would like send me a note over like, don't come out the yard today. I'm about to shoot this bitch up. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? So he would like go out there and whip the colostomy bag off and just literally take the yard hostage. Like, don't nobody say shit. You say something, I'm going to stow shit everywhere, right? And so that's how they would wage war. And so that was the chaos of the environment. And then like, we get into it with the officers. Guys would like flood the cell block. So they would put sheets in the toilet and just flush. And now the whole tier is just flooded. And so it's definitely a biohazard issue at minimum, right? Your health and well-being is always being threatened by, I think we got 3 showers a week, and the showers are like they're just back to back. So you're not like, they're not cleaning them out in between showers. So you're literally handcuffed. They take you down to the shower cage. You go in there and it's fucking snot on the wall and it's fucking, somebody's shaving because they will give you like the little razors to shave. And then you got the guys who we call them cutters. So these are guys who like self-maim. And they would take, anything you could think of, they would take and just kind of carve up their skin, swallow, like one guy swallowed batteries, so they stopped us from like even getting, at one point we can get like a little tape player, and a guy ended up swallowing the battery, so they banned all batteries, so then we couldn't listen to music anymore. And so it was just like complete chaos, and it's one of the darkest places, in the world. And I've been in different solitary, in prison. Out of 19 years, I was transferred a total of 19 years to 11 different prisons. And so I've done solitary in like a super old prison, more the modern prison. But the one I did the most time in, which was from 1999 to 2004, was called Oaks Correctional Facility. It's one of the more modern prisons. And so, in the midst of that chaos, I decided there was a couple of things. So one, I had read this book about what's supposed to happen to your mind when you're in that environment. And it talks about like how it will cause you to hallucinate. It talks about how it will cause you to not feel like you have like any agency over your life. It affects how you communicate. Because in order to talk, you got to lay on your floor and like scream under the door and try to hear a guy, or you got to try to talk through like the electrical socket. So it's all these different things that I kind of knew going in. And so I set up for myself, because I didn't want to, like, the only thing I feared about being in prison was losing my mind. I was never worried about my physical safety. I grew up fighting. I grew up with brothers. I grew up on the east side of Detroit, so I knew how to like take care of myself. Losing my mind was the one thing that I was like, I was afraid of that, because I saw guys who were like normal guys, and 5 years in, they're not the same. They're not the same. And you see this like glossed over look in their eyes, and it's the scariest shit ever to see somebody start to hallucinate, start to make up a life that is not true. And so I set my days up like I was at university. And I always say this, Joe, this is like super important. I was lucky. And I was lucky because I was literate. And like the average reading grade in prison is about third grade. And I wouldn't be here with you right now if I didn't know how to read. Like I would not be the person that I am today. And so because I knew how to read, I was able to really structure my days like I was at a school. I would study philosophy in the morning. I would study world history. I would study African history. And then I would just like read for pleasure. But I was always like, every day I'm figuring out, okay, how do I keep my mind moving forward? And if you keep your mind moving forward, you can actually survive. And it's no different than any other hard shit you got to go through. But it's really like, can you keep your mind taking one more step? And then there were some days where I was like, I don't like, yo, this shit is too much. Like I'm feel myself like physically, like I can't take one more day. And in those days, I would just grab a book, man, of somebody who inspired me. Sometime it would be Nelson Mandela. He had been through like 27 years. And I would just like open it up and like, let me just start reading something. I would read the poem Invictus. Like that poem always just kind of brought me back, like, you're the master of your own fate. You know what I'm saying? You're the captain of your soul. So I would go back and read that. There's a book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's about 60-something pages. I would literally, my version of that was so dog-eared, but I would like literally just open it up, and any page was about, if you master your thinking, you can master your environment. And so it was like things like that would keep my brain just going forward. Obviously I would work out, do push-ups and calisthenics and roll up. I used to roll my mattress up, and then you tie one sheet around it, and you put the other sheet through it, and you make your handle, and now you could do your curls, So I would do that, take that mattress, put it on my back, I would do squats. So I would run my routine in there, and just running that routine is really what kept me like, put one positive thought in front of the next, And I mean, at that time, I still was like, I wasn't like a model prisoner. I don't want the listeners to be confused by that, because it's a little different, right? It's somebody who follows the rules and just stays out of the way and get out of trouble. Like I was into bad shit in there. I didn't ever think I was getting out. So I was like, I just got to run an environment. I got to be in control in this environment. I got to, make all the moves to have agency over my life in that environment. And so initially while I was in there, I was only focused on getting out so I can finish getting into shit. It was always these moments of like, I'm going to do right this time. But it was never about me. It was always like, I'm going to do right so my dad doesn't have to come see me in jail or come bail me out, or my friends don't have to come, try to get me out of trouble. It was never a real thing. And so when I started journaling, I started with this essential question of like, man, how did I end up here? Because up to that point, I didn't think of myself as a bad person. Like, I didn't think of myself as like angry. I didn't think of myself as like, I didn't even think of myself as violent. I thought that I had just got into some situations that people provoked me in. And so I asked this question of like, man, how did you get here? Like, you're the smart kid. You're the kid that want to be a doctor and an artist, and how the hell did you get here? And so I started going back, and I started asking myself questions based on, when was the first time you got arrested? And what led to that? And then what happened the second time? And when was the first time this thing happened and that thing happened, and who was responsible? And what I was able to do was I was able to go back and realize that I had all this trauma. I had all these traumatic things that happened to me as a kid, but I also had caused a lot of hurt. And I did a lot of things that really was like, no, actually, you probably are a bad person. And so as I began to write and sort those things out, I realized I never finished anything. I started a bunch of things. I never finished high school. I was like probably one of the smartest kids in the class. Went to Job Corps, got kicked out before I finished that. Was going to go to the military, never followed up to take the test. So I was a consummate quitter. I started some stuff and would never finish. And so I said, in my journal, I said, listen, if you're going to turn your life around, you have to finish one thing. You have to challenge yourself to finish one thing. And so I'm looking around this cell and I'm like, okay, what can I do? I've done all the push-up challenges, you could do in solitary. And I was like, you should write a book. But you got to write the book in 30 days. If you write this book in 30 days, you can change your life. If you don't, you're going to die in prison. And that was my charge to myself. And now I'll tell you, like in solitary, there's no, like you don't have a word processor, typewriter. You can't even have like a regular ink pen because, they're scared you're going to like shank somebody or stick somebody. They give you this little flimsy plastic pen. And so I remember getting a pen. I got like a little pad of paper. I said to myself, like, it's no way possible you're going to write a book in 30 days with that pen. It's just not possible. And I remember saying to myself, this is what you always do. You always make an excuse. You always make a way to get out of being accountable. What are you going to do? Are you going to turn your life around, or are you going to bullshit the rest of your life away? And so I sat there for a while, and I was like, what if I roll this pen up in some paper? And I literally took some paper, and I started to roll the pen up so it was firm enough, and it was like the size of a regular pen. And I wrote that first book in 30 days. And I knew I would never go back to prison if I ever got out. Because at that point, I still didn't know if I was getting out.